Now, on Channel 3 News.
We're just days away from the official start of hurricane season. Already activity across the Atlantic. We'll tell you the newest hurricane predictions from NOAA out this week. Parts of our area still recovering from two twisters that ripped our neighborhoods apart. A stark reminder to get ready and get ready now. The lessons left behind by this year's tornadoes. Evacuation routes, home insurance, supplies, and community support. How you can prepare now for the next natural disaster. Channel 3's Storm Watch special starts now.
Storm Watch 2016 is brought to you in partnership with Pensacola Energy. Here is Channel 3 News Chief Meteorologist Alan Strum.
The weather here on the Gulf Coast can be fantastic, just like this. But we all know it can change and change very quickly. I'm Chief Meteorologist Alan Strum. For the next hour, we're going to help you get ready for the upcoming hurricane season. First, let's take a look at what we're expecting this year.
So hurricane season starts Wednesday, and the experts at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have just released their predictions for the year. They believe 10 to 16 named storms will form, 4 to 8 of those being strong enough to be classified as hurricanes, and 1 to 4 of those becoming major hurricanes, which of course means Category 3 or stronger. These numbers are pretty average. A normal year has about 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 2 major hurricanes. NOAA meteorologists say there are a couple of reasons this year may be more active than last, which only produced 4 hurricanes. One, the possibility of a weakening El Nino leading to a strengthening La Nina. Tropical weather is more active in the Atlantic Basin during La Nina years, and it's believed there's about a 70% chance of La Nina conditions during the peak hurricane months. Another major factor is it's not known if the active cycle that started in 1995 has ended. Active cycles typically last about 25 to 40 years.
Whether it's a quiet hurricane season or an active season, it only takes one storm. It's that one storm that we have to be prepared for. We've been beat up by major hurricanes right here, and eventually another major hurricane will strike. It feels like we've seen it all here on the Gulf Coast: floods, ice storms, major hurricanes, and more recently, EF3 tornadoes.
45 years passed without an EF3 tornado hitting Escambia County, and in early 2016, the area was struck by 2 in 2 weeks. The damage was incredible, but warnings were issued and nobody was killed. Shortly after the Century tornado, I found a woman who survived her house being torn apart. She only had a scratch on her hand. She ended up in a place just safe enough to keep her alive.
One of the things that we always tell people too when there's a tornado warning or something like this happening is to get into an interior hallway or inside an area that is away from doors and windows. And of course, in Northwest Florida, we don't have a lot of basements, which would be a very safe place to go. In this case, she picked the right place because she ended up being okay. This wall helped. The roof came flying off, and you can see that this might be an area too that would have been okay because it is an interior hallway and it's away from doors and windows. Incredible to see the damage here around Century and northern parts of Escambia County.
Watches, warnings, and alerts were in effect, but the lead time on a tornado is far shorter than a hurricane. One of the first things I tell people when it comes to hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast is leave. If you can get out of town and away from the storm, you're better off. The alerts for a hurricane will come in plenty of time for you to get up and out of the way, but plans and preps should be made before the weather is bad. We'll help you plan and prepare right now.
During our recent pair of tornado outbreaks, we were flooded with pictures from parents showing their children huddled in hallways during the warnings. Families wore bike helmets or sports helmets to protect their heads from possible flying debris. Some even covered themselves with pots. After the disasters, our Facebook page was inundated with suggestions from viewers about how to prepare. Among the valuable tips, make sure everyone is wearing sturdy shoes and clothes. Don't walk barefoot or wear flimsy PJs. Pack valuables in an easily portable cooler. Keep a laundry basket nearby filled with chargers, water, medicines, and snacks. Don't play in floodwaters due to floating objects, snakes, and raw sewage. Our next story highlights a family who was slammed during the spring 2014 flood. Jill Noble shares how they coped, what was really helpful during the long cleanup, and how that even changed how she watches and talks about weather with her children.
Jill Noble says April 29, 2014 began as just a really rainy night.
We still went to sleep and didn't think anything of it. We just did not expect what was going to happen.
Around midnight, a neighbor in their Bristol Park neighborhood called. By that time, 3 feet of water was already in the Nobles' home. Jill woke up her 3 children.
We just said that there was water coming in the house. They really were kind of half asleep, and once they came to, they were very brave.
Jill, her husband and kids, the neighbors and dogs spent the night on their one-room second floor. Jill forced herself to be calm as she soothed her children back to sleep.
I've never been in a situation like that, so I don't really know how to answer. I think something just takes over, your maternal instinct, and you're just like, have to pull through.
The morning after, shock set in.
We're just all in the same kind of like dumbfounded, oh my gosh, did this really just happen? It wasn't a nightmare, it really happened.
Just as her little ones were beginning to fall apart, help arrived.
A very good friend of mine came and took my kids to her neighborhood for the day, thank God, because I mean, picking up the pieces the next day was much harder than going through it.
Over and over during their 3-month recovery, Jill highlighted the helpers, not the chaos, to her children.
Taking our laundry, I had a friend come over and just say, give me everything. Her and her mother did our laundry for days because everything is, wet and ruined.
A friend had an empty house for them. Their LaBelle Dance family brought food, bleach, and weeks of elbow grease. Her boss painted her reconstructed house. Life smoothed out, with some changes. Jill's now very weather aware.
Text alerts that we always get, I'm the first to admit, you read it and you go, okay, maybe you don't take it as seriously. I guarantee you we take those very seriously now.
Their children haven't shown signs of trauma.
I probably have more of an internal panic than the kids. They seem to be okay.
Severe weather worries and questions are addressed head-on with complete honesty.
I think you have to, because how terrible if you were to say, oh no, everything's going to be okay, and then the worst happened.
2 years later, the night of the flood is fading, but fond post-flood memories are clear and frequent.
They all showed up, and I just started crying. I was like, because we didn't even know probably 20 of the people that were there, really.
Catherine Daniel, Channel 3 News.
One of the areas hit hardest by Hurricane Ivan was Grand Lagoon. It was a tragic experience for that area, but through the loss and trauma, the community learned from Ivan. Ricky Van shows us how they prepare for hurricane season every year.
We're trying to tell people it is absolutely unsafe to be out there at this point.
You can only imagine what it's going to be like when the winds reach a real hurricane force, so this is a very dangerous place.
It's not a day they like to talk about.
Look, and it was devastating.
The surface up, the surface breaking over the wall.
September 16th, 2004.
This area, Grand Lagoon, was hard hit. This house was about half destroyed by Ivan.
Joe Hodge is a retired Navy captain who was stationed in Japan when Hurricane Ivan made landfall.
It was like Pensacola had a bullseye on it for at least 48 hours prior to Ivan hitting. We were just watching this thing unfolding from the other side of the globe.
Renters were living in his home on the shores of Grand Lagoon.
Fortunately, the renters we had here evacuated in plenty of time to not be harmed.
A couple blocks away, homeowner Karen Deep and her family left as well.
We were afraid. We were just afraid. We had a feeling that this might not be a good situation.
And it wasn't. Records indicate that multiple people lost their lives in this community. Homes were flattened by surging waters and strong winds.
Every single home, every unit out there.
Today, you can still see concrete slabs where there once were beautiful Gulf front homes, like where this home now stands. It was rebuilt after the storm and has new owners.
So it was pretty much flooded, and then they just redid the entire thing. So, they lost all their memories in that home.
It has been a while since this area has been hit by a hurricane, but before each season, you can bet this community is prepared.
You've got to be prepared. In the Navy, there's a term called redundant systems. So you want to have multiple supplies. You want to have lots of batteries. You want to have a few flashlights. You want to have more water than you think you might need because things go wrong.
Make sure that you have a safety deposit box. You put all your important papers in it, family pictures and things like that, that you have a place for those things or take them with you when you go.
Santa Rosa County has an 8-week hurricane kit shopping guide with things on it like getting batteries, flashlights, and food that you can store. Now, it's an 8-week guide. That way you're not getting things all at once right before a storm. In Escambia County, Ricky Van, Channel 3 News.
Straight ahead, the new technology out this year that will help warn you about one of the biggest threats to your family and your property. And if you're planning to leave, do you know the area's evacuation routes? How to get out of Northwest Florida fast. And whether you go or stay, there are new tools to keep you up to date. Where to find breaking weather, traffic, and power outages on your phone. And if your phone's dead, how to power it up when the electricity is out.
If you've ever lived in a hurricane-prone region, no doubt you're aware of the phrase storm surge. And many of you probably know what it is. Well, in 2016, there are new products that will help you prepare for a potential storm surge from a tropical event. Here's meteorologist Christian Garman with a little Storm Surge 101.
Meteorologically speaking, it's a relatively easy concept to understand. In the example I've created here, we have a Category 3 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico just to our west. The wind around an area of low pressure, in this case, of course, a hurricane, flows counterclockwise, which in this illustration puts Northwest Florida on the eastern side of the storm. That's always worst case scenario with tropical weather. You can see here that as those winds move around the storm surge, which is essentially an onshore flow of water, has to go somewhere. The problem is it ends up coming right into many coastal homes and businesses. The National Hurricane Center tells us that storm surge is often the greatest threat to life and property from a tropical cyclone. That's why they've come up with new ways to warn us for this significant weather threat. For instance, the NHC will again be using their prototype storm surge watch warning graphic. The graphic will highlight areas along the Gulf or Atlantic coasts in the United States most at risk for life-threatening storm surge inundation from tropical weather. It's an experimental graphic that began in 2015, but last year, none of the storms produced a surge that met the issuance criteria. It's expected to be fully operational next year. Another graphic from the NHC that will become fully operational this year is the Potential Storm Surge Flooding Map. This is an example of the product issued in 2014 for Hurricane Arthur. This one highlights geographical areas where inundation from storm surge could occur and the height above ground that the water could reach. The map depicts inundation levels that have a 10% chance of being exceeded, which can be thought of as representing a reasonable worst-case scenario for any individual location. With these new products, it's clear the science is getting better with predicting storm surge, and the fact that they exist at all serves as a nice reminder of how important it is to be aware of the storm surge threat from any tropical event.
After years of planning, that new weather warning system could pinpoint the intensity of a storm surge days before the flooding hits. And the NOAA plans to roll out an even more detailed version next year, one that could predict storm surge before a system even develops. Another way to help you evaluate danger far in advance and decide whether to stay or go. When a hurricane hits, the Department of Transportation's top priority is getting people out quickly and safely. They send crews out to clear debris on the roads and make sure traffic is flowing. But they say we have to do our part by figuring out 3 different routes to get out of town, and they say we should do it now.
Another reason to stay with the Channel 3 First Warning Weather Team. Ian Satter with the Department of Transportation urges people to listen to forecasters on air and online.
If they're telling you to leave, it's time to go. So get what you need, get in your car.
When a storm is coming, time is of the essence. That's why you want to have your evacuation route already planned, because when a hurricane hits,
it's too late at that point. So we want to make sure that you're on the road way ahead of time so you can get away safely.
a lesson learned the hard way.
When Hurricane Ivan came through, we had an issue on I-10 where the bridge was actually washed away during that time. There were people that were stuck on the roadway. They couldn't cross. So at that time, when the storm was coming through, if people hadn't evacuated at that time, they were stuck. They couldn't get east or west at that point.
Satter advises everyone to have a couple backup routes in place. The plan generally for hurricane evacuation is getting north as quickly as you can. For Escambia County,
you want to look at I-110 getting out of that major thoroughfare, US 98 across the bridge, up through the Pensacola area, get on the I-10, get north as far as you can.
For Santa Rosa County,
you have State Road 87, which is a major north-south corridor that you want to be able to use.
For Okaloosa County,
you have 123 and State Road 85. Those are your key evacuation routes to be able to get out of those southern coastal regions.
Reporting in Northwest Florida, Meg McNamara, Channel 3 News.
This is Palafox Street. It's flooded before. It's happened in the early 1900s and again more recently in the April 2014 floods. The National Weather Service has a phrase, turn around, don't drown. Here's Ginger Z with the tools you need to prepare for rising water.
More than any other weather hazard, half of all flooded-related drownings are from people driving into flooding. When flash flooding's happening, all it takes is just 6 inches of water and you can lose control of your car. More than a foot, you can actually start to float. And at 24 inches, your car can literally be swept away. So what should you do if you see water? Turn around, don't drown.
So if you find yourself in that emergency situation, the water is coming up and over the car and your windows won't go down, you're going to need one of these, an emergency hammer. You can break right through the window and get yourself out.
Not a bad idea to keep one of those window breakers in your glove compartment. Of course, you can buy one for just a few bucks in stores or online. And while you're there, maybe pick up a first aid kit and an emergency road kit. Coming up on Storm Watch, the new leader at the Okaloosa County EOC hits the ground running. His experience with severe weather in the Northeast and his plan here along the Gulf Coast. Plus, we're helping you plan for hurricane season with all the supplies and tools you need to prepare for a storm. And the social media sites you need to download now in case a storm starts brewing.
When it's calm like this, it's a good time to get your hurricane supplies. Once the Gulf starts churning and a storm heads this way, everything starts to clear out. David Gonzalez takes us shopping.
If you know a storm is on the way, it's very important that you get prepared as soon as you can. You do not want to wait. That's why you should visit a store just like Lowe's to gather yourself an emergency supply kit. That kit will help you survive the storm because you don't know what impact it's going to have in your community. So what are some of those items that you will need? Well, let's find out. Let's go inside. When getting that emergency kit ready, the number one thing on that list should always be food and water. The number one thing that you should think about is planning for at least 3 days with that food and water. Something like this is 4 gallons. So for a family of 4, you'll need at least 3 of these. One of the things about living in Pensacola is that we all know that hurricanes can hit this area. That's why the American Red Cross has kind of set up a checklist area for you where you could just grab all of your essentials. For example, here, the hurricane checklist has everything you might need. For example, food and water, which we already have, but also other items that can help you as well. You have to think about what can happen during an emergency. For example, what happens if your power goes out? That's why there's essentials like this. We have a converter. This one is a little bit bigger, so it's a little more expensive. It costs $113. This one's a little bit smaller, a little more affordable. This one, $40. But you also have to think about quick and easy. That's why you want to make sure that you always grab a flashlight and have it handy, and also have batteries available just in case, because you don't know how long the power is going to be out. While you're making sure that your family is prepared for a hurricane, you have to think about the little things that are easy to forget. For example, pet food, medication and stuff like that. That's why this checklist comes in handy. For example, things on here are like disinfecting wipes, also hand sanitizer and towels. But one of the things that you should definitely not forget is a first aid kit. For example, something like this will run you about 20 bucks. This has everything you'll need, like Band-Aids and gauze as well. Always remember though, if the situation is a lot worse that something like this cannot handle, you should definitely go to the hospital. The safety of you and your family should always be the #1 priority, but if you do have time to make other preparations, you can think about things that will help protect your home. For example, plywood just like this one runs you about $17 a sheet. Buy 4 of these and then you'll be able to protect your home. But if you do want to get everything on this list, it could get a little expensive, so it's easier for you to get some of this stuff now before waiting before it's too late. Reporting in Pensacola, I'm David Gonzalez, Channel 3 News.
If a storm hits, let's not forget about pets. Stranded pets become a major problem after hurricanes. In fact, retired veterinarian Ron Hales took in hundreds of animals from Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina pummeled New Orleans. Some stayed at his Gulf Shores resort for months before his team tracked down their owners, but he's prepared, checking backup generators, lights, fans, water supplies. This time of the year, he's getting ready for hurricane season.
We also have an agreement with the local power company that after the hurricane, if we lose power, we're on a priority list along with the hospitals and stuff. They pull us back in within 24 hours.
To get your pets prepared, make sure to collect their information and store it somewhere safe. That means licenses, vaccinations, prescriptions, and so on. Also important, how about a microchip for your animal? Every shelter is required to scan pets for microchips when they come in because it's the fastest way to get them back home. And your boat. With so many boat owners along the Gulf Coast, many don't know what to do with the boat once the storm starts heading this way. If you can't tow it north or run it way down the intracoastal, there are ways you can help prevent your boat from being wiped away.
The best thing to do, of course, is to pull them out of the water, get them up on dry land that's a good elevation so you don't have to worry about tidal surge, and get them anchored and properly secured.
Everyone loves to spend time out on the water in a boat, but when winds and water combine in a hurricane, they can become dangerous. Pensacola has about 2,000 boats in the water during the summer months. Local boat yards can only accommodate a few hundred at a given time. The rest have to be removed from the area or stay somewhere in the water. The goal is to secure them.
Double tie your lines to be sure that they're secure. Make sure you don't have old chafed lines on the boat. Get everything that you can off that's not going to blow off the boat. Just make sure it's secure and properly tied. You want to get it in as safe a place as you possibly can. If you live on a canal, you can move the boat out into the center of the canal and have lots of ropes tying it out so there's plenty of length on the rope. So if you have a tidal surge, the boat will go up and down and it won't snap the ropes or break any pilings.
John Neighbor of Pensacola Marina says the biggest challenge they face each season is complacency.
You know, right after Ivan and Dennis, everybody was down here on their boats, pulling the biminis down, tying stuff up. What can I do to help? You know, and just getting all ready for the storms. Well, you know, 7 years later, not so much.
The best plan is to actually have a plan and know when to put it in place.
You know, it's like putting shutters on your house. You know, do I put the shutters up? Do I not put the shutters up? So at some point you have to make a decision. You know, do I think, you know, what's my boat worth to me? How much preparing do I want to do? And
after Hurricane Ivan, Neighbor had $1 million in uninsured losses to the marina. He doesn't underestimate any storm that will come this way.
But we take it very seriously, and hopefully other people will.
With social media and smartphones, the latest and most reliable information is at your fingertips. Channel 3's Jacqueline Kelly shows us what apps to download now to make sure you and your family stay connected during a storm.
During Hurricanes Ivan, Dennis, and Katrina, there was one thing folks didn't have that they have now. You can now watch WEAR TV's live broadcast online. When Channel 3's on the air during a storm, you can stream it live from any device. You can also get the latest weather alerts and updates when you download the WEAR TV weather app. But there's other important apps you should have at your fingertips during a storm. NOAA's High-Def Radar app uses real-time high-def radar images to track hurricanes using the latest images from NOAA satellites. To keep track of power outages in your area, download the Gulf Power app. It's also good to follow the National Weather Service, NOAA, FEMA, the Red Cross, and other local response agencies on Facebook and Twitter for real-time updates on evacuation routes, traffic conditions, and rescue efforts. During and after a storm, major cell carriers like Verizon say they bolster reliability of cell towers, making it easier for you to turn to your devices in an emergency. But what do you do if there's no power? There are a number of gadgets you can purchase for your smartphone to help you stay connected during a prolonged power outage. A solar-powered cell phone charger can be picked up for about $25 and can keep your phone powered for up to 8 hours. You can also get adapters that actually transfer power from your basic AA batteries to your phone for less than $20. Aside from the gadgets, a couple of simple tips can help you extend the life of your mobile device. The brightness of your phone screen is one of the biggest drains on your battery. Turning off push notifications and turning off Wi-Fi while your power and internet is down can also extend the life of your battery. But the best way to extend the life of your phone is to turn it off completely until you need to use it. Jacqueline Kelly, Channel 3 News.
A new local EOC director bringing loads of experience to Okaloosa County. The lessons he learned from Hurricane Ivan all the way up in Pennsylvania. Plus, a look behind the scenes at hurricane hunters on their Gulf Coast tour. Their new instruments that will better protect you. And we're going to take you back in time. The history of hurricanes along the Gulf Coast and the damage left behind we can still see today. During a storm, Gulf Power employees keep a constant eye on possible area outages. During Hurricane Ivan, Gulf Power says about 365,000 people lost power, some for weeks. That means no air conditioning, refrigerator, hot water, or TV. And less than a year later, during Hurricane Dennis, another 266,000 went without power for several days.
Had one storm where we our likes on our Facebook page grew by 1,000 within just a week, and that was just from one of the smaller storms that that grazed through this area. So we look at this as something that's going to be huge when a major storm comes through. We've watched other utilities and how they've used social media and things like that.
If another storm comes our way, it's possible we'll lose power again. That's why Gulf Power employees retrain every year on the best and quickest ways to get the lights back on. Here's some video of crews just weeks ago. It's a mock storm scenario, and they're going step by step through procedures of restoring power to hard-hit areas.
In the scenario today, it's a pretty severe storm, 300,000 without power in our service territory. It's all hands on deck. We've got crews coming in from out of town. So this drill is pretty complex and is going to help us be even better the next time a storm comes through.
Rogers says since 2008, Gulf Power crews have traveled to more than 30 other places hit by severe weather. Within the past year, they've assisted power crews during the massive January storm that hit South Carolina. They've also deployed to Virginia in preparation for Hurricane Joaquin. Of course, they can count on other branches to help our local crews in case of our own natural disaster. Check out Escambia County's hurricane exercise. 90 agencies were there for this year's disaster training, all with the same goal, making sure every organization in the county is on the same page during a disaster. The drill has 4 phases: preparation, response, recovery, and mitigation. And though it was a mock hurricane drill, it helps the county prepare for other natural disasters.
Well, this was demonstrated by the recent tornadoes. We stand up the Emergency Operations Center. Whether or not we had an event that night, it was still training for us. It continues to hone our skills and help us to have better communication between the different agencies.
Santa Rosa County held its hurricane exercise at the same time. That drill also including tornado, flood, and tsunami emergencies. Okaloosa County is heading into hurricane season with a new public safety director at the helm. Alvin Henderson is from Pennsylvania, where they don't see many hurricanes, but as Channel 3's Laura Hussey found out, he's fully prepared for the Gulf Coast tropical weather.
Preparation is the name of the game, like this hurricane drill at the Okaloosa EOC. For new Public Safety Director Alvin Henderson, the foundation of responding to a Gulf Coast hurricane is what he calls an awesome team.
There is vast years of hands-on, battle-tested experience. For me as the public safety director, I just have to see how I can help them be successful in their operations.
And don't assume a guy from Pennsylvania hasn't seen a hurricane. Most recently, Henderson dealt with the impact of Superstorm Sandy, and he has strong memories of a storm we're very familiar with. His county was slammed by the remnants of Hurricane Ivan.
We had homes that were having people trapped in their first floors, second floors, even to the point where we were getting calls that people were trapped in their attics and they were trying to chop a hole to get out on the roof to be rescued.
Emergency Management Director Randy McDaniel notes the flooding Henderson dealt with in Pennsylvania is one of the biggest impacts of hurricanes here, more common ground.
How can I apply what they did in Pennsylvania to what we're doing here, because they may be doing something better than we're doing, and can I change what I'm doing to make the program better?
Henderson's first order of business was to build a strategic plan, looking at threats and vulnerabilities. McDaniel says having a fresh perspective on operations keeps everybody's game sharp.
If you ever get to the point in emergency management that you think you know everything, you've just become dangerous.
In Okaloosa County, Laura Hussey, Channel 3 News.
Henderson may have been destined to work in emergency management. His dad was a volunteer fire chief, and he started his own career as a firefighter.
Hurricane history along the Gulf Coast, dating all the way back to when Pensacola was founded. A look at the major storms since then and how they've transformed our backyard. The hurricane hunters that risked their lives flying into the eye of the storm. The new instruments this year that'll better protect you. And we'll help you navigate the tricky insurance process that plagues the Gulf Coast. The best decisions for your home and your family.
There's a ton of history in Pensacola, and just last year the location of Don Tristan DeLuna's settlement was discovered right here in Pensacola. This guy had to deal with a hurricane as well. Here's a look at the history since.
Hurricanes in Northwest Florida go all the way back to when we were first founded, back in 1559. Don Tristan DeLuna anchored in Pensacola Bay and settled in what's now a Pensacola neighborhood. Luck was not on the side of DeLuna, and a storm badly damaged the fleet and settlement, nearly wiping it out. Fast forward to 1995, a rough year for us. Hurricane Erin struck Northwest Florida in August.
Now we're trying to clear out a path to get to the front door.
Thousands of homes were damaged. Now we remember Hurricane Opal, October 4th, 1995. It hit the whole panhandle from Pensacola Beach to east of Destin. Two big blows in the same hurricane season.
Opal, from the sheer surprise standpoint of how fast a hurricane can intensify, and I think that caught a lot of us kind of off guard.
The damage, more than $1 billion. After that double whammy of a year, we got a nearly 10-year break. Then the next storm to hit us was Hurricane Ivan. It was a monster. September of 2004, Ivan struck as a major hurricane. Ivan the Terrible, a Category 3, striking and devastating the area. The storm surge knocking down part of the I-10 bridge.
It's something to see an almost Category 5 hurricane over the central Gulf of Mexico coming right at you. You know, you're going nose to nose with it.
The damage, $18 billion, and more than 91 people died from the storm, with dozens killed indirectly after its landfall. Dennis hit less than a year later, just east of where Ivan made landfall, but it caused far less damage, though devastating for some. Katrina struck the same year as Dennis and demolished areas of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. It was more than a glancing blow for Northwest Florida, as power was lost and damage reported. Major hurricanes have been a big part of our past, and unfortunately, they will strike again in the future. Hurricanes have not been kind to Fort Pickens Road. It's been destroyed many times over the years, but steps have been taken after the lessons learned in hopes of minimizing the damage when the next storm hits. Channel 3's Christina Leavenworth has the story.
Fort Pickens Road, a scenic 7-mile stretch where both the Gulf and Bay are visible most of the way. Consequently, when the wind and water are raging, the road is caught in the middle. It was destroyed by Ivan, then rebuilt. And 10 months later, the $12 million road was wiped out again. 3 options, that included building no road at all, gave way to a new strategy. A road built in a non-conventional method.
They lay the asphalt directly onto the sand. They get a machine in here to kind of pack down the sand, and then they lay the asphalt right on top of it. So that costs them far less to do it that way.
The result is pavement without a gravel roadbed. The storms can no longer scatter into the sugar white sand. More importantly, it lowered the profile and elevation of the road.
And the thought there was that if the water would wash over the top of the road and deposit sand on top of it, it would protect the asphalt.
So far it's worked, but the downside is dozens of closures have occurred, even when minimal non-tropical weather has moved through. But whether it can survive another Ivan or Dennis is a test nobody hopes to learn anytime soon. Christina Leavenworth, Channel 3 News.
Coming up, the enormous difference between homes that aren't prepared and those that weather the storm. But it costs money to harden your house. We'll help you manage the insurance coverage. And the drones that can go where the hurricane hunters can't. One of the most valuable places for data inside the hurricane. It's 3 days before hurricane season officially begins, but at the Capital Area Red Cross, the season doesn't matter.
What we do on a year-round basis is recruit volunteers and train those volunteers so that they're ready.
Florida's been blessed with a decade-long hurricane drought, but Sharon Tyler says that can be a blessing and a curse for residents.
It's really important to stay prepared. We have a tendency to be very complacent since we haven't had a storm in a long time, and so we don't stay on our toes and have everything the way it needs to be.
That drought has brought some good news for the state, though. Florida's Catastrophe Fund is the strongest it's ever been. The Catastrophe Fund is used to reimburse insurance companies after a catastrophic event. State officials say if Hurricane Andrew were to hit again tomorrow, we could cover it.
We've been fortunate. The wind has not blown, and we haven't had a major landfalling storm in a decade.
With nearly $17 billion on hand, state officials say they are confident they can handle a big one.
We're good for one event, yes. If you had multiple hurricanes, Andrew, you would be less good.
Florida homeowners had to pay special assessments to help pay for the 2004 and 2005 storm seasons when the state was peppered with hurricanes. The National Weather Service prepares for hurricane season all year, sending the hurricane hunters into tropical and winter storms all over the world, collecting data. Many of these flights start just down the road out of Biloxi, Mississippi. They can fly up to 3 storms at a time from the Mid-Atlantic to the International Dateline in the Pacific. Even in winter, hurricane hunters fly into nor'easters to improve the accuracy of weather forecast systems.
Well, our primary mission as weather officers on board the Hurricane Hunters is to collect data and make sure that when it gets back to the National Hurricane Center, that information is accurate so that when they put it into the models and tell the people what's going on, that they get a more accurate picture.
Whether a storm is just starting to form or we've got a full-blown hurricane, the hurricane hunters investigate and collect tons of data which is fed into different models and help us figure out where the storm is going and what kind of conditions it will bring. Storm surge can be devastating, and this year we'll have products to tell us more about what to expect. Jacqueline Kovac tells us how the new technology will be improving forecasts.
Hurricane hunter Major Eileen Bundy shows us the W-130J. The aircraft is strong enough to fly directly into the eye of the storm, which she says is actually a beautiful sight.
It's a wall of clouds like a football stadium, and then you look up and it's clear blue and the sun is shining. And it's absolutely amazing.
About 5 people are on board the craft to collect data at 10,000 feet, flying in and out of the hurricane. They drop weather instruments inside the storm to measure the intensity, and they're not the only ones up there. NOAA also sends a team to fly above the storm and around the storm to gather data.
Launch dropsondes that collect temperature, wind speed, dew point, pressure, and all that information is collected and then sent wirelessly back to the aircraft.
Through satellites, all the information is sent to the National Hurricane Center almost immediately. That's where Director Rick Knabb plans to use new models, a storm surge flooding map.
And it's going to show you where the storm surge flooding could occur. You know, how far inland from the beach the flooding could go and how high above normally dry ground the storm surge flooding could go.
Knabb says it's been in the works for nearly a decade. Now it's ready to launch this hurricane season.
We're motivated by the fact that storm surge historically has taken far more lives than any other hurricane hazard.
Hurricane Katrina produced one of the highest storm surges in national history, around 25 feet in Mississippi and parts of New Orleans, killing more than 1,800 people. Knabb hopes these models will help you make a better decision about evacuations.
And hopefully when they see it, they'll go, okay, I see why my emergency manager is telling me to evacuate.
These weather missions can last up to 13 hours. They're also testing these. Drones help scientists understand how energy gets into a storm. They can collect data where people can't, at the ocean's surface. It fills what researchers call a data void that's hampered computer models in the past. A lot of these resources emerged from lessons learned in Hurricane Katrina, the last major Category 3 storm to hit the U.S. $7 million and the 2012 Hurricane Sandy relief law are helping to make better warnings about major storms.
If we can't sample this region very well, very accurately, all the time, we have the potential to miss how much energy is coming out of the ocean by a third or a half.
A lot of these resources emerged from lessons learned in Hurricane Katrina, the last major Category 3 storm to hit the U.S. $7 million and the 2012 Hurricane Sandy relief law are helping to make better warnings about major storms.
One of the most important things for a homeowner is good insurance. Cutting corners on coverage, not always the best idea. Channel 3's Jacqueline Kelly shows us how to protect your family and your home while still saving money.
February's EF3 tornado came through this Pensacola neighborhood. The path of that destruction evident with homes like this, but you can also see the difference it made for homes that were hardened before the storm and protected in case of a major storm. This family telling me it not only protected them during the storm, but it's helped save them hundreds every year.
The lights blinked and they went off and she said, "Mom, run."
Lois and David Watson remembered the terrifying moments when they took cover in their bathroom as the tornado passed over their home.
The walls were literally shivering. My ears just almost exploded. I grabbed for them, yet it was only a minute time.
In that minute's time, the 150-mile-an-hour winds wreaked havoc on this quiet cul-de-sac. Today, nearly 3 months later, only 3 of the 9 homes are livable, including the Watsons' home.
The house next door to us was not, but the house on the other side of us had all the windows blown out. We didn't even have a window cracked.
They did have some damage. A tree fell on the side of their house, piercing the roof and causing a small leak. But they say they fared far better than most, thanks to Rebuild Northwest Florida.
We replace these garage doors. If you see these struts here and the way it's attached to the wall, this makes it a wind-rated and impact-rated garage door. And a lot of the homes out here that didn't have these failed.
Through the program, the Watsons upgraded their hurricane shutters and installed this steel door.
The way it's fastened to the structure and the way the door is made makes it resistant to wind pressure and impact.
They also strengthened their roof.
We put hurricane clips on this house. These will not be able to see them because they're buried in the soffits, but basically that holds the roof trusses down to the walls.
William Merle with Rebuild Northwest Florida says insurance companies offer credits for storm-rated features and upgrades through what's called a wind mitigation inspection form. And he says it's something homeowners can do on their own.
If you wanted to get credits on your insurance, you would hire an inspector. There's many local companies that do it.
But Merle says even if you haven't made any upgrades to your home, you should still get an inspection.
What's interesting is that a lot of people that have never had the inspection done, they may be eligible for credits they're not even getting.
For the Watsons, the total out-of-pocket cost was $4,000. And in the 4 years since they've made the upgrades, it's paid for itself. Every year, they've received more than $600 in credits on their insurance bill.
We're on a fixed income, so we have to watch every penny close, and this has been a very good help in helping us do that, too.
But the Watsons say the peace of mind of knowing they're protected and prepared is priceless.
To find out more on how you can make improvements to your home or if you qualify for credits you may not know you're eligible for, just head to our website, weartv.com. In Pensacola, Jacqueline Kelly, Channel 3 News.
Straight ahead, the storm names now officially cut from the rotation and why.
The names Joaquin, Erica, and Patricia are officially retired from the rotating list of hurricanes and tropical storms. The World Meteorological Organization cut them from the lineup because of the massive destruction the storms caused last year. Hurricane Patricia was the strongest hurricane ever recorded between the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic basins, and Hurricane Joaquin slammed the Bahamas just months ago. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Erica, the deadliest natural disaster to hit the Dominican Republic in nearly 4 decades. The World Meteorological Organization reuses storm names every 6 years. All names are either French, Spanish, or English. You can find the complete list of this year's names on our website, that of course, weartv.com.
Thank you for joining us for our hurricane special. We hope you're a little bit better prepared, or at least thinking about it, as we head into the 2016 hurricane season. Remember, you can always connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, our website, weartv.com. And I always tell people the best thing to do when a hurricane's coming is just get out of town. When you do, you can always catch our live stream. Just search WEAR live stream and you can watch us anywhere. Thanks so much for joining us.
Storm Watch 2016 was brought to you by Pensacola Energy.